Hey everyone. So I hope everyone's last few days of the season is going well. If you're looking for that last final push for the next rank, I have a team for you that might work pretty well. So the team I'm using in this video actually took me up 650 plus points in 6 days. I started out in the 2300s and it got me all the way to rank 10. So the team I'm featuring is actually a team that I used last season that got me to rank 10 in Premier League, but there's a slight change in the movesets. So it's Gyarados with Dragonite and Metagross. And for Gyarados, instead of running Crunch and Outrage, you're going to run Aqua Tail and Crunch. Having that Community move with Aqua Tail actually makes this line significantly better, and I'll kind of discuss why that change is pretty significant for the strategy here. Like I mentioned in my last video, you want your best buddy to be Metagross. Having a near perfect or perfect Metagross that's best buddied against a Dragonite definitely helps win that 2-shield matchup. For the IVs on my Pokemon, all three are 100%. If you don't have 100% and aren't sure if your IVs are good enough, I would go to PvPoke and just to do a mass simulation to see if your IVs drop you any significant matchups or not. So let's get started with the first match from the 2300s and work our way up. So in this matchup, I'm going against Snorlax with Gyarados, and pretty much you'll find that Gyarados with Aqua Tail, you don't really need to switch out in the lead for pretty much anything except for Dragonite. And so Snorlax, because it's a shadow variant, it's not going to tank as much, but it's going to hit a lot harder. And you definitely have to watch out for a potential Skull Bash. I made that mistake myself a few days ago, and that one-shot me. But as long as you shield your Gyarados once, you should be able to finish off the Snorlax. The big issue is they can shield twice and win that matchup. But at that point, you come in with a 1-0 shield advantage, and Metagross in the back can pretty much handle anything with a 1-0 shield advantage. Okay, so right here, they're doing a hard farm off of my Gyarados right there, so this is probably going to be an Outrage, and then they unfortunately actually bait me with Sand Tomb, so I quickly swapped in Metagross, hoping to catch maybe an Outrage, and I do. I'm not sure if they actually meant to do that. They might have just meant to throw the Outrage, who knows, but I am just going to go for a bait right here because they still have a shield, and luckily I do grab that last shield, but this stuff definitely puts me in a very tough spot because this Metagross is going to have a ton of farm. Oh yeah, no, these are 2 shields, yeah, so I had to get rid of both of them. So I know this Metagross probably has another meter match ready, and my Dragonite just has to get to his Hurricane, which is going to be kind of a big task. My opponent probably makes a slight mistake right there by swapping in the Garchomp because it gave me just a little bit of energy that I needed to get to his Hurricane. And yeah, let's do the flip that matchup. Okay, so regular Snorlax is probably what you're going to see more often. Again, you want to stay in, and unless they're charging up a ton of time, so I know this is definitely a Body Slam, but if they're charging up a ton of time, it might be a Skull Bash, but that was very clearly just a Body Slam. And if you both just one shield, you'll win this. And having that switch advantage does help quite a bit because Dragonite and Metagross complement each other pretty well in the back. Gyarados and Metagross also complement each other too, so you want to keep at least that Metagross alive if possible. So right here, I'm just going to shield the Body Slam, and I spend 1 shield to win switch advantage. I don't actually get any charge moves off, but that's pretty much enough for me because I pretty much have very hard counters in the back for their Pokemon, so as long as I line that up perfectly, you'll be in good shape. So at this point, I'm going to probably just Dragon Breath down this Swampert because I don't really want Togekiss to have too much farm off me. I actually do end up just throwing the Dragon Claw just in case they had like a Sludge Wave and they haven't thrown it yet. That would definitely put me in a bad spot with Metagross. And here, I can just Bullet Punch down. Okay, so Metagross, this has been a favorable lead for Gyarados in the past. And right here, it looks like they might be running kind of a reverse mirror lineup. So same lineup as me, but Metagross in the lead. And in that situation, you are going to have the upper hand. And they go for the Outrage right here. So a Waterfall Gyarados, especially with a slight energy advantage, will get to Outrage before you can take it out with Dragonite. So what I prefer to do is just Dragon Breath it down and have a bunch of energy for the next Pokemon coming in. That way I could just shield once, and then I put a lot of shield pressure on their next Pokemon. My opponent here actually doesn't shield the Metagross right there, and they come in with a Dragonite, so like I predicted, it's kind of the reverse mirror here. And then Dragonite with 2-to-1 shield advantage against Metagross is not ideal, so I'm going to come in with this Gyarados to really chip away at this Dragonite. These waterfalls are resisted, but they do start adding up, especially with the crunch damage. And I quickly swap to my Metagross at this point because I realized that yeah, at this point I could pretty much take it out. So I don't shield the Hurricane because I know that I could survive it either way. So I didn't want to get baited out, and I was able to Bullet Punch down. Again, very favorable lead right here. So let's see if my opponent stays in or not. I usually go straight for the Crunch just because it does a ton of damage if it goes unshielded. And then I'll finish it off with Aqua Tail if they do shield. So they do shield right there. And I am going to shield this just in case it was a Psychic, because Psychic will pretty much potentially flip this matchup if they land it. But at this point, I realize they're probably running Meteor Mash. So I do shield the second one, or I do let the second one go. Either way, I probably had to shield one of them, so it's not a waste. And then my opponent is going for another charge move here. They actually double shield their Metagross. So at that point, I felt comfortable just letting my Gyarados go. Like I said, Metagross with the shield advantage pretty much can beat a lot of things, especially if you have an energy advantage too. And so right there, I purposely chose not to shield, throw any charge moves off of my Dragonite, even though I had the Hurricane ready, because I want to charge up to 2 Meteor Mashes right here. So I'm just going to commit to farming it down, and I'm going to drop 2 back-to-back Meteor Mashes and take out the Garchomp. So a lot of times, even though Dragonite can dish out a little bit of extra damage or a lot of damage with Hurricane against Togekiss, I often just try to farm down with Metagross anyway, because it gives you a lot of energy for the next Pokemon. Okay, so this is easily the hardest matchup to go into, and it's Dragonite lead. So again, I had the Hurricane ready, but I'd rather just farm down with my Metagross. You know, sometimes it's good to just throw the charge move just in case they might shield it. Most players recognize that they don't need to, but you might catch some people off guard, who knows. All right, so yeah, this is a very tough lead because Dragonite lead probably means that they have a very reliable steel counter in the back. So of course the Gyarados right here, and then my Gyarados is also going to do poorly against this Dragonite, so there's not too much I can do. The big thing here is you want to fake that you have Outrage. They don't know you're running Aqua Tail with Crunch, which is super weak to Dragonite. My opponent there actually does not fall for it, so that's smart on them. And I think it makes sense because they had the Gyarados in the back, so even if they lost Dragonite, it's not a big deal. But yeah, this is pretty much GG's. There's really nothing I can do here, so I'm just going to let the Aqua Tail go. But yeah, this is a very tough lead. So, and again, this is the only lead in pretty much all of Master League that you need to swap out right away. So I do swap straight to my Dragonite right here, and then they actually come in with Metagross. And so that was a great catch by them to catch that Dragon Claw. So you definitely have to keep in mind that that Dragonite in the back does have a Dragon Claw ready for whatever comes out next. And at this point, because I'm almost at the next Dragon Claw, I could potentially flip this matchup or force a shield. So they actually let it go. So that's a pretty good spot for me to be in. Now I can come in with my Metagross and absorb all this damage. And then it is going to be Snorlax. So I'm going to drop this Meteor Mash just to make the matchup a little bit easier for my Gyarados. Because with the 2-to-1 shield advantage, it's definitely going to be a little bit harder. And then this way, if I do flip this, if I do lose this matchup and Snorlax has a little bit of health left, I can farm it down with Metagross and not be capped at like 100 energy. Because I dropped the move earlier. So they do end up shielding right here. So this puts me in a pretty good spot. All I had to do at this point is pretty much Bullet Punch it down. Okay, so they actually do a quick swap to their Dragonite. And at this point, I'm going to just let the charge move go because I know that Snorlax has a lot of energy and a superpower, or Earthquake will definitely threaten my Metagross. And then right here, I'm gonna shield this. It's probably a Body Slam bait, but at this point, there's no reason not to shield. And then so they go for back-to-back Body Slams, but I know I survived the second one, and I could drop the Meteor Mash. So it is still possible to overcome Dragonite leads. It's just very tough, in my opinion, just because they usually have a lot of counters for your backline. Again, so right here, so if you noted, I actually did something really important there, is I didn't drop a single fast move with my Gyarados. And the reason you want to do this is because you don't want to give up that information too early on, because then they know Dragonite has a great matchup with Gyarados. So as you can see, my opponent actually didn't swap in Togekiss into my Dragonite save swap. And that's probably a misplay by my opponent, but at the same time, I can understand because they're thinking if I have Dragon Breath Gyarados in the back, they were going to do much better with Togekiss than their Dragonite would. But what ends up happening is it's actually a waterfall one, and so this ends up putting me in a very good spot. And I'm just going to throw the Aqua Tail right there as a bait, and then I could just land the Crunch, and that'll pretty much one-shot it from this range. Oh no, okay, I actually go for the Aqua Tail, and the reason behind that is actually because I wanted a little extra energy to farm off of this Metagross, or I didn't want the Togekiss to farm too much off of my Gyarados because one flamethrower would put me out right here. So yeah, so that's why I kind of was okay with Gyarados losing that matchup, and then I'm going to drop the Meteor Mash. So Gyarados lead, so particularly Dragon Breath Gyarados lead is a losing matchup. That Dragon Breath is going to do neutral damage, whereas Waterfall is doing resisted. So we're going to go straight for the Crunch right here. And another way to play is actually build up to like a pretend Outrage to potentially force a shield. So Hydro Pump, a very interesting moveset. So because they are running Dragon Breath, I am comfortable with just bullet punching down with my Metagross, because I know that I'm resisting that fast move damage at least, whereas Dragonite's going to take super effective. And then double Meteor Mash Metagross is going to be kind of tricky for any opponent to have to go into. Honestly, the thing that would resist us the most is Gyarados, but because Gyarados is already taken out, I don't have to really worry about that. I just let the Dragon Claw go through right there, mainly because there's not a big reason to shield, because they probably have a Dragonite counter in the back. So you want as little farm as possible off of that Dragonite from your opponent. Right here, I think at this point I'm going to commit to a Bullet Punch farm down, because Haxorus is actually very tough for my team, especially Metagross. And so, yeah, so I'm building up to the Meteor Mash, and then Haxorus is actually very glassy, so it does get taken out by this Meteor Mash. But yeah, unfortunately, because even though you lose this lead matchup, you really can't risk swapping out, because then you're in a very bad spot if you have the Gyarados matched up with Metagross down the road. So I think at this one, I do fake Outrage, so I build up extra, potentially drawing a shield. So if I could lead with a shield advantage, that's great, and I do. And then now I'm going to just throw the Aqua Tail to just chip a little bit at this Dragonite, or this Gyarados. I think in this situation, I do come in Dragonite just because it is way too hard to bullet punch down Gyarados at that range. And then I do let the Aqua Tail go, and then I'm going to let this Aqua Tail go as well. And then I do a quick swap right now to Metagross to farm up extra energy. Maybe it was a miscalculation because now I actually end up getting hit by an Aqua Tail. But I do have a bunch of energy now, and this is actually very good for the matchup against Magnezone, because I just need to land one Earthquake and I'll be fine. They do bait me with the Mirror Shot, so that's not ideal, but I'm pretty confident I could get to an Earthquake before they could get to 2 more moves. So this is probably another Mirror Shot bait, but I'm going to shield just to be safe, and I throw the Earthquake. I do get debuffed, but Earthquake just hits really hard against Magnezone. And then they come in with Dragonite. I swapped to my own Dragonite because I knew I had a Dragon Claw already, and also I want to clear the debuff. I also didn't want them to farm energy off of my Metagross and then throw a Dragon Claw at my Dragonite, because that would KO it. At this point, I just Bullet Punch down. Very close match in the end, but was able to win that one despite the lead disadvantage. All right, how do you play the mirror? So I think I've only played 2 mirrors so far leading up to this video, and they're actually running Outrage variant instead. So I could kind of gauge from my own energy if it was going to be Outrage or not, which is why I shielded it. And then now I'm going to throw the Aqua Tail. The big thing here with the mirror is that winning lead is fairly important, but if you win with a sliver of health and they come in and farm down with Metagross, you're in a very bad spot. So what I do right here is actually pivot to my Dragonite, and the main reason is because if they do have a steal in the back, I want to save my Gyarados for them, especially if it's a Metagross. So I kind of had an inkling that it might be a mirror line, and so right here it is, and so that way I still have my Gyarados in the back to handle the Metagross. They actually let the Earthquake go, and you can see the match right there. So yeah, so it's a little bit of a tricky situation in the lead, based off of, like, you know, who wins it and how much health you come out of the lead situation. All right, so Togekiss. Now with Aqua Tail, you're actually in a very good spot. You can win this if you choose to, but what I do is I throw the Aqua Tail after I charge a little past the Crunch, and if they don't shield, or if they do shield, I come in, I just let my Gyarados go, and then I come in with Metagross to farm down. They almost always swap out, And at that point, you can just bring in the Dragonite to counter their first steel counter. So very safe to assume they have another steel counter in the back. What I'm going to do right here is work myself down to very low health so they can't farm too much off of me. And as you can see, the switch timer wasn't up just yet. So I throw the Dragon Claw, not to take out the Togekiss, but to burn the clock. So that way I can swap to my Metagross and they can't farm any energy off of my Dragonite. And I still have my Dragonite in the back just in case I need it. And so I let that first Sand Tomb go because I made sure to count to make sure that it wasn't going to be an Earthquake. And now I could just shield the next 2 Sand Tombs. So this is still not an easy match because these mud shots are also going to start adding up. And then I take out the Togekiss simultaneously. So I still won that matchup because I had Dragonite in the back. That's why it was very important to still preserve that Dragonite just in case it came that close. Had I not, I might have lost that one, or I might have it might have been a tie. Okay, so what happens if they don't shield? This is actually a very good spot now, and in the old lineup last season without Aqua Tail, you couldn't do this, right? But now what you do is you need to just fast move down the Togekiss, don't throw another Aqua Tail. If you do that and shield once, you win that matchup no matter what. Even if it's the best buddy Togekiss, you do need a very high IV Gyarados, so definitely simulate it out in PV Poke to see if it's possible. But you throw one Aqua Tail and just waterfall down. If you throw another Aqua Tail, you actually lose because the Togekiss gets an extra charm through when you're throwing the Aqua Tail. So at this point though, I'm in a okay spot. So I do swap my Metagross to draw out the Garchomp early, and the main reason I did that is because Metagross's main target is Togekiss, and so if they didn't have a Togekiss already, if I already took out the Togekiss, I might as well just bring out the Metagross early to sack it and figure out what's in the back in case Dragonite needs to take it out. So I actually luckily shield the Outrage right there and able to just Hurricane down the Snorlax right here. So yeah, so that's it's going to feel very uncomfortable finishing off that lead matchup with 1 HP if they don't shield, but you always finish with 1 HP as long as you have a good enough Gyarados and they don't end up shielding and you don't throw the second Aqua Tail. Alright, so right here my opponent actually swapped out their Togekiss, which is not a bad idea because they're thinking, well, maybe their whole backline is weak to Dragonite, so they need to draw out the Dragonite somehow. So what I'm going to do instead is make sure that they have nothing to farm off of this Dragonite. So I play it very close right here, but I do leave a sliver of health for my Dragonite. Now I could drop a Hurricane, and then they get 1 charm of farm off of this Dragonite. No big deal. I got Metagross now to handle it. And so I'm going to bring Metagross in, and then they have Machamp, and then Gyarados does pretty well against Machamp, especially with 2 Aqua Tails loaded up. And, you know, the Rock Slide is going to KO my Gyarados, but that's fine. At this range too, I could pretty much bullet punch down the Machamp. And I still have 2 shields, so I'm in a very, very good spot. I'm going to shield the first cross chop. If it's a close combat, it'll pretty much come close to KOing me. So definitely want to be cautious of that. And also, I have 2 shields, so why not use them? And it would finish the Togekiss. Alright, here's a matchup that actually is a big improvement for Aqua Tail Gyarados. Before, Magnezone was probably the hardest lead. Now it's actually a very solid and winnable lead now too. So it really depends kind of on how the Magnezone player plays, but if they don't shield the first Aqua Tail, I end up shielding. And they throw a Wild Charge, and if they don't time their Wild Charges right, they actually can only get 1 Wild Charge off. So that's actually huge. Winning switch by just investing 1 shield with Gyarados is a very good spot to be in. And then at this point, I'm going to come in with my Metagross, and let's see if I shield this or not. I probably just let it go because I could survive a Hurricane from this range, and it's going to be a Hurricane. And then I'm going to throw my Meteor Mash right here. It is kind of interesting that they haven't swapped out yet, but yeah, it is going to be Gyarados, and Waterfall Gyarados is going to be a very easy match for my Dragonite. And I'm going to shield this Outrage right here, and then at this point I could just farm down with Dragon Breath and take it out. So this is probably just an Aqua Tail. Yeah, and just Dragon Breath down from here. Alright, so the big thing is how do you play the matchup if they do shield, or if they bait you and stuff like that. So these are a couple different scenarios with Magnezone. I wouldn't say it's an easy matchup by any means, but it is a much better matchup. So they do shield here, and what you could do also is throw the Aqua Tail after they throw a charge move, but the problem is if they have back-to-back Wild Charges and they get both off before you get the single Aqua Tail, you end up just throwing 2 shields away. So my opponent right there ends up throwing a Mirror Shot, and I was committed to just letting my Gyarados go at that point because I felt okay with just coming out with a 1 shield advantage, but they ended up having to double shield, so I came out with a 2 shield advantage, and I do shield the Dragonite right there once because I didn't want to get taken out by the Metagross. So at this point, they're actually running Earthquake Garchomp, so this is actually very good for me because now I know that they probably can't get to another Earthquake that quickly, and I just farm down with Bullet Punch. And then now I just land 1 Earthquake on their Metagross, and I should be able to take it out. So even double Steel lineups in the back is very beatable with this team. Okay, so let's see what the Magnezone does right here. I try to go for the Aqua Tail as soon as possible. Some Magnezone players will throw the Wild Charge before you can get to the Aqua Tail, so that's a moment where you really have to decide if you think they're baiting with Mirror Shot or not. If they bait you, then that's a huge advantage for them, and if you don't shield and they land the Wild Charge, that puts you back quite a bit. So my opponent right there does end up just Mirror Shotting me, and they played it really well because they got some extra energy and they didn't have to shield twice. So I double shield right there, keeping my Dragonite alive, and then I'm going to just go straight for the Hurricane. Let's see if they get the last shield or not, and then I do, so that's actually very good. Now I can bring in my Metagross, and then fortunately they have something weak to Metagross in the back. If it's like a Gyarados, then I would have lost that one for sure. But now I can just farm down this Dragonite. I'll survive. I don't think I survived Draco Meteor, but I survived pretty much everything else. Yeah, Hurricane I survived, and then now I have the Meteor Mash ready. Drop it on the Togekiss. Gyarados is probably the best counter for Magnezone in this line, but most Magnezone players probably lead with it. So it's kind of hard to match that up. Alright, you always want to be sure you're counting your opponent's charge moves, fast moves right there, just to see kind of where they're at. So again, they shielded. So I think in this spot, I end up shielding. So this is a scenario where even though they shielded, I shield too. And the reason is because these waterfalls are going to do a bunch of damage to the Magnezone now. And so they swap out, and I'm going to bring in my Dragonite right here. It's a better counter than Metagross is, especially with shields down because they might be running Earthquake. It's very obvious at this point that my opponent is throwing Body Slam, so I don't really have to shield. And then I go straight for the Hurricane, just try to one-shot this Snorlax. Worst case scenario, they shield and get a shield off of me, or they invest a shield. And so now shields are down. What I need to do with this Metagross is get to a Meteor Mash before they get to Earthquake or Superpower. It seems likely that they're probably running Earthquake at this point. And I am able to. And so now I know the Magnezone has a little bit of energy. I don't want this Metagross matched up with it, so I quickly swapped my Gyarados. You want to always keep in mind how much energy your Pokemon have still, and I realized I had still an Aqua Tail left, and this puts me in a good spot because now I can line up my Metagross with the Togekiss. I don't really want to take too much damage here in case they still have Wild Charge in the back, but I was able to Bullet Punch down the Magnezone. Alright, Garchomp lead is not as great without Wild Charge because you can't one-shot it, but it is better with Aqua Tail because you could chip away at it with Aqua Tail. So I usually shield the Outrage, and they actually do a quick swap right here. Here's the thing with Dragon Breath Gyarados that's running Crunch. Even if they land the Crunch, they have to double shield your Dragonite to win this matchup. So I know I can get to 2 Dragon Claws at this range, so I go for the second one. Let's see if they double shield or not. And it looks like they do, so that's actually very good for me. I'm gonna come in with my own Gyarados right here and just go and tank this move. It's probably gonna be a crunch, even if it's an Outrage. I think I barely survive it, and I go for a quick counter swap with my Metagross. And now I know that this is probably gonna be a Meteor Mash. So, oh no, it's gonna be Earthquake because they got to the swap before me. So I'm gonna farm up a little extra past Earthquake and get 100 energy, and then land the Earthquake. And then now with energy, I am able to beat this Garchomp now, and then I'm in a very good spot because I still have energy on my Gyarados, but this Metagross can pretty much finish off everything. Yeah, so Garchomp does pretty much no damage with Mud Shots, so you pretty much just want to, as long as you shield the Outrage, which most go straight for the Outrage, they don't really bait with Sand Tomb because it just does literally no damage, you'll be in a good spot. So my opponent right here, staying in, again, fake that you have Outrage, right? So this potentially could draw a shield, and it doesn't actually, so at that point I'm just going to throw another Aqua Tail, and this will put it really low. So I do draw another shield with the Aqua Tail eventually, and then they throw an Outrage, and then they come in Mamoswine. So at that point I come in with my Metagross, because they either have to shield this matchup, or they get taken out by the Meteor Mash. So I believe this is a line that was popularized by, I think, Togekiss. So it's Garchomp with Metagross and Mamoswine. And I remember when I was watching my friend CCO play this team on stream, I was thinking, okay, this is a team that's very weak to Waterfall Gyarados. And because there's not that many Waterfall Gyarados in the lead these days, I can see why this is actually a very solid line in the current meta. But anyway, I like it a lot because my Waterfall Gyarados does very well against pretty much all 3 of their Pokemon. And then I quickly swapped to my Dragonite because I want to draw all this energy out of the Metagross, and now I could just Waterfall it down and then have Aqua Tail ready for the Garchomp. And again, Garchomp needs an Outrage to do any damage to Gyarados, so unless it has that much energy, that's GG's. Okay, Dragonite is the hardest lead for the team to go into. Haxorus is probably the second hardest, and the main reason is because of that Dragon typing. It's going to resist this Waterfall damage, so that is definitely a drawback over the Dragon Breath variant. And then I should kind of make a mistake there. I could have charged more to make it really seem like an Outrage, but I just end up dropping the Crunch, and I think my opponent still just shielded just to be safe. So I let my Gyarados go. You don't really want to swap out because Haxorus is very good against Metagross in the back. Whereas with Dragonite, if you swap out from that lead, Metagross can still beat the Dragonite down the road. But Haxorus is a different issue. So my opponent actually throws Outrage into my Metagross, which is kind of odd. I wonder if they're running like Outrage and I don't know, Heavy Slam. I don't even know why that might be the go-to move, but it does put me in a decent spot to take out the Snorlax. And I quickly swap to my Dragonite. Yeah, and the main reason is because I didn't want this Metagross to farm extra energy off of my Metagross, but unfortunately this is already kind of a lost cause. I do have to go straight for the Metagross Meteor Mash, but this Haxorus can just finish me off with like 1 counter and take me out. So I've gone into 2 Haxorus leads, and I've only won 1 of them. Unfortunately, I didn't film the one I won, but I will say 99% of the time it's going to be a very tough match that you might lose. But that's okay. Can't win every team composition. I think, yeah, so going into this matchup, Machamp, you want to shield a Rock Slide because it could do quite a bit if you don't, and then they could just start throwing cross drops to bait out shields. So they do a great swap to their own Gyarados to catch the Aqua Tail. And I let this Crunch go, and so this is pretty good because Machamp is not great into Dragonite with a little bit of energy either. So I'm going to throw this, yeah, I'm going to throw this Dragon Claw right here, and then I think I come in with my Gyarados. Yeah, so Gyarados does well. I don't really mind the Metagross versus Machamp matchup because the cross drops aren't enough to take out the Metagross. So my opponent actually does a very great swap right here to force my last shield. But now I could just Waterfall down, and then I'm going to throw an Aqua Tail right here and then swap to my Metagross. I know I'm probably going to get hit by Earthquake right here. So I just need to get to this last Aqua Tail, but I really didn't want them to have energy off of my Gyarados and then land an Earthquake. So look, I was able to squeeze out a win right there, a lot closer than I expected. But 2 really great swaps from my opponent really kept that closer of a matchup. All right, Smackdown Rhyperior. Honestly, if it was Mudslap Rhyperior, this would be 2 hard-eyed cats for the lead, but even Smackdown is pretty solid because this Waterfall damage just chunks away at the Rhyperior, and then my opponent brings in their Dragonite. And the thing is, Rhyperior doesn't do great against Metagross either with Smackdown. So I'm going to let this charge move go, even though it's a Hurricane, no big deal. I'm going to save that shield just in case this Rhyperior has a little bit more energy. They actually end up coming in with Gyarados, so this actually makes the matchup a little bit hard because, oh no, I still have my Dragonite. Yeah, I thought I had a Gyarados left. Yeah, this is easy. I just shield the Outrage, and then I can pretty much Dragon Breath down, and then do a bunch of damage to this Rhyperior. I should come in with my Gyarados just to Waterfall it down, and then I have Aqua Tail ready to chip away at this Gyarados, and then I have Dragon Claw on my Dragonite to finish it off. So yeah, Rhyperior leads very easy to deal with, even if they're running Smackdown. Alright, Mamoswine, another great lead to see because it is super weak to Waterfall and you're only taking neutral from these Powder Snows, so my opponent does swap out. I do bring out my Dragonite just because Mamoswine is a decent counter to Dragonite, so I definitely want to get rid of my Dragonite as soon as possible. Again, even if they land a crunch, they had the double shield right here to win this matchup. So I am going to throw my next Dragon Claw, and let's see if they double shield or not. They don't. Okay, so that's pretty good. And now I can just come in with my Gyarados and just line this up. I'm going to shield this Avalanche because it does quite a bit of damage. And I'm going to just throw this Aqua Tail. I'm not too worried here because even my Metagross does pretty well against Mamoswine. And then they do a quick swap to Swampert. So this is actually very good for me because Gyarados is a much better counter to Swampert than Metagross is. So they actually brought out their big Metagross counter already. So it makes life a little bit easier for me. And then we just drop these Aqua Tails, which this neutral damage is going to start adding up on the Swampert. And at this point, I think I just no, I do shield. Just because I wanted to get extra waterfall damage on this Mamoswine. And even if they take me out right here, one Bullet Punch will be enough to take out the Mamoswine. All right, and then finally Swampert lead. Very good for the team because it not only is weak to Gyarados, but it's also weak to Dragonite. So even if somehow this Gyarados gets taken out, you still have another counter for it in the back. So they bring in their Dragonite right here. The big thing you have to worry about actually is that because Swampert's in the lead, they probably have a hard Dragon counters in the back. So good to assume that they either have a Steel in the back, which is ideal because then I have Gyarados that could counter that and the Swampert, or they have Togekiss, which is more likely to happen. So what I'm going to do right here is I know I win this matchup in one shields, but if my opponent decides to double shield, I lose it. And that's fine with me because what I'm going to do right here is come in with Dragonite. Expecting that there might be a Togekiss in the back, and so here comes the Togekiss. I'm going to just build up to a Hurricane. I know I could get to this in time. My opponent does a great swap to throw a Hydro Cannon, so because of that, I swap to my Gyarados. I know I have a Hurricane ready, and I'm going to win CMP against the Togekiss. So I'm going to just Waterfall down right here. Yeah, I doubt it could be, they'll have Sludge Wave. Even if they take out my Gyarados, I could just Dragon Breath it and then throw the Hurricane. Honestly, I don't really even need to throw these Aqua Tails. I probably need to throw one just to ensure that Hurricane one-shots. But that's pretty much it. And then Hurricane's built up, take out Togekiss. So on this next clip, I actually decided to hit rank 10 on my patrons only stream. So I had a good support system cheering me on throughout. So I'm going to play the clip of my last battle that got me to rank 10. Yeah, $29.99 would be terrible, but it is what it is. Ooh, all right. We're going to have to earn this one for sure. It's not unwinnable, but it is hard. 2, 3. Alright, I think they're actually going for double wild charges here. See if they shield enough. They use shield. Oh, mere shot. Okay. Not fun. See if they shield here or not, though. I was trying to get attack debuff because I might be able to waterfall them down if they shield this. Oh, they do shield. Interesting. What the heck? Oh my gosh. Alright, I think the play here is... Whoa, what? What was that? Was that undercharge? Whoa! Did you see that simultaneous swap? Wow, we got lucky there for sure. What was that? Maybe it was an animation glitch? I hope they didn't lag. That's very unfortunate if they did. That wild charge is like nothing, right? Maybe, I'm curious if my Dragonite has health left in the back or not. Oh, this is nice. It's very nice. This still can be very close though. Let's see how much health my Dragonite actually has in the back, because if it was just an animation glitch, I'll still be pretty low. Oh, actually, I think I should be fine. Wow. Let's see. Even a Dragon Claw won't be enough here, so they're gonna have to Hurricane me here. Or double Dragon Claw me. Oh, okay. Yeah. We did it. We did it. Oh, well, let's see. it could still be $29.99, and if that's the case, yeah, I guess it doesn't matter if the wild charge fully hit my Dragonite or not, but the simultaneous swap helped me a ton. Yes, all right. So one final bonus clip. What happens if you accidentally press that Open Master League button instead of Premier with this line? All right, Mewtwo lead, hate to see it. Honestly, every time I see this, I'm like, oh, I messed up big time. For a second, I'm like, how does this matchup go? And I realized, no, this matchup shouldn't even go in general. It shouldn't even be a thing. So I'm going to throw the Aqua Tail, baiting out a Crunch. They actually don't shield, so I'm going to bring in my Metagross right here, and let's hope they don't have a Shadow Ball. They do have Shadow Ball. Not good. So now they come in with Groudon and farm me down with Mud Shots. Luckily, Gyarados has a solid matchup here unless they're running Solar Beam, which is unlikely in Master League. And I'm just committing to just farming down with Waterfalls at this point. I'm like, all right, I'll take whatever Charge Move you got. I can't risk throwing another shield or throwing a move. So I'm just going to, yeah. And then I quickly throw a Crunch right here, seeing the Dragon typing. So this is going to do okay damage. But I come in with my own Dragonite, and now I know they probably have to throw a Charge Move to take me out. I'm going to shield it, and it's going to be a Wild Charge. And then now I Dragon Breath down the Mewtwo, and I Dragon Breath down the Zekrom. So kind of a weird match, but I was able to pull off one victory with this team against Master League at least. I hope you enjoyed this team, and I really hope this team can help you make that final push to the next rank you're going for this season, or just finish off in a good note. Overall, I think this team is super balanced, and besides the Dragonite and Haxorus leads, you pretty much have to play against pretty much any team. A big shout out and thank you to all my patrons who have been supporting my content creation. With the Flying and Halloween Cups coming up, I definitely will be creating some exclusive content for my Meta Breaker tier for my patrons, especially because these are one-day events. If you are interested in some early access strategies for those cups, feel free to sign up for my Patreon down below. If you like this video, feel free to give it a like and share, subscribe for future content, hit that notification bell if you want to get alerted right when I post new content, and I'll see you all next time.